Next on the College Rugby Wrap Up, all things D1A, NCR, NYRA, men, women, and the national teams. Rugby Wrap Up brought to you in part by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, the world's best rugby pub. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle. Hey everybody, welcome back to the College Rugby Wrap Up, powered by Rugby Wrap Up, Matt McCarthy in Midtown Manhattan, and I am joined again by some heavy hitters in the college rugby landscape. These are graduates of college, which is remarkable if you get to know them. Just kidding. But first up, we have Colby Marshall out of Iona and Zach Lanning out of Holy Cross. But we have our prodigal son, our colleague that helped us do the first iteration of our college show, Mr. Josh Ressio of Michigan State. Josh, you're out on the West Coast in Los Angeles or San Diego?
San Francisco, close enough.
San Francisco, right. Same thing, right? You know, what do you got, the
Pretty
different
much.
area codes and stuff?
Something like that.
All right. Anyway, Josh, I'm kidding. You're out in San Francisco. You are very up to speed on the college rugby scene, Michigan State guy, and we'll get back to you in just a minute. But guys, last week we started the show talking about the All Blacks of New Zealand walloping our Eagles of USA Rugby at FedEx Field. And to maybe offer some fans out there some perspective on that match, Wales was just walloped in Wales by the All Blacks 54-16. So Wales is ranked number 9. Team USA is ranked number 17, fighting off those angry Romanians who are in the 18th slot. So while it doesn't lessen the blow of losing 104-14, it does kind of put it in perspective. And Team USA fans can certainly find a lot of Welsh men and women commiserating in that misery, which is playing against the All Blacks. Anyway, let's use that segue to go to our collegiate players or aged players that might be vying for a position on the national team. Zach Lanning, why don't you give us some perspective on the USA selects?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, just to first off say commiserating in misery was the name of my band in high school. We didn't really make it that far, but it was pretty dark. But you're right. There is a lot. It's not really been a tough time for fans of USA Rugby. These recent stretch of matches have not been super encouraging, but we'll get to later. The women's Eagles fell in their first test match in a couple years to Canada, but you could say that there is some hope with the young players at least getting out and playing matches again, getting some development. Speaking of the select side in the Americas Pacific Challenge, they ended their tour south of the border with a loss to Chile A, 29-14. 2021 MLR draft selection George Sharp, the hooker, did score one of the 2 tries in that match, but that ends their run with a record of 2 losses and 1 cancellation, their first match against Argentina being canceled due to travel issues. And while you'd like to see these young sides be a little more competitive in these matches against other rugby playing nations in the area, Matt, again, these are uncapped matches. They're not necessarily much at stake other than preparing for the future, which is something that head coach Mike Tolkien tried to put in perspective with this quote that he put after the match. Quote, "The purpose of this tournament was to identify players who might be able to move on to play for the Eagles sooner rather than later, to play against stronger, harder, faster competition and see what it's like for the younger players, and to be able to adapt to game plans on the fly. That is important, and you get punished when you don't do that." So they were punished this side in these last few matches, Matt. But again, as Coach Tolkien says, they're looking towards the future with these matches.
Mike Tolkien has become the James Brown of rugby. He's the hardest working man in show business, in rugby, that is, because he's coaching the 15s USA selects in different countries. He's running the Premier Sevens, the professional rugby sevens. He's also doing color commentary in Major League Rugby matches. He's all over the place. So, if anybody knows the American rugby landscape, it's him. But that doesn't make it easier for those people smashing the water cooler in their offices and flipping over tables, seeing that we're losing to Chile and to Brazil, particularly with the timing of us getting destroyed by the All Blacks.
Right. Yeah, I think, while rugby fans would like to see some more progress and some of this potential turn into wins on the pitch, you can't deny that win or loss, these matches are valuable experiences for these young players, playing against the best of the best around the world, or at least, their same level of competition. Again, we'd like to see some of this potential start turning into something real and concrete. But for now, it's just good to get on the pitch and play some rugby, I think.
Let's get back to college rugby on American soil. Colby, fill us in on the NCR, the National Collegiate Rugby scene.
Yeah, Matt. I mean, the table is set for the NCR D1 men's final. We had a few semifinal matches to follow over the weekend. Iona defeated Syracuse 62-5 at Mazzella Field in New Rochelle. Jack Brandis, their lock, had 5 tries in that game and 1 man of the match. Cam DeGiorgio, the number 8, also added a try in that match as well. And then on the other side, we had Northeastern defeat Fordham 20-17. That was a close game throughout, Matt. I mean, it was pouring rain in the first half, cleared up in the second half. Dendup Galpo scored a try and conversion that put Northeastern up. Fordham made a run late in the game, but Northeastern hung on for the 3-point victory. And now Iona is going to play Northeastern this weekend in the NCR final, which should be a great match.
Is there any truth to the rumor that there was a Lanning facilitating all 5 tries by that lock?
I like Jerry, but I do not want to put Jerry's name in the dirt like that. He's a very good player, young freshman, has shown great promise, but he would never. So
how was that put into the dirt that he facilitated the tries? He set the tries
you're
up.
You're insinuating that he is. No, he did not. No.
Lannings are scorers, Matt. They're not facilitators. Okay.
All right. Okay. I don't know how that got twisted into a negative there, but speaking of segues and twisting, let's go to Josh Ressio. Josh, this was all NCR babble to you. You're a D1A guy, right? We have the two factions, the two divisions in college rugby. As we know, NCR used to be NSCRO. Now you got D1A. It's basically the Mississippi that splits the two divisions. And yet you're from Michigan State and you're playing 15s in the fall. What's going on there?
I don't know, man. There's nothing that beats 15s in the fall. I got to tell you, the weather's perfect. Well, sort of. But there's nothing that beats it. We can't be playing in the spring in the snow. We don't all have indoor facilities, so rugby's in the fall when it comes east of Mississippi.
Oh, wait a minute. University at Buffalo, we played 15s in the fall and spring. We didn't have any indoor facilities. Don't tell me that the weather's any different. Okay, A. And B, your school represents the problem with the whole D1A NCR conflict. It's because you want to play in the fall in 15s, but so does the NCR, right?
Well, I think you got to think about it two ways, right? You mean, schools like Michigan State, for instance, right? We're paying for our fields, and paying for a field in the spring is nearly impossible because half of them got snow on them. So, a lot of schools have no option but to play in the fall. So, you look out on the West Coast and you got amazing programs in Cal and St. Mary's that have a lot of buy-in from the universities, but out here on the East Coast where, we're very limited in the time we can play, we got to fit it where we can. And the fall so far has been the best area to do that.
And there you go. Just again, solidifying the idea that the calendar should be 15s in the fall and 7s should be in the spring. That's all I'm going to say. But we're not going to get bogged down that because we have a more important thing for you to enlighten us on. And that's this thing called the Battle for the Mitten. What is that exactly?
Matt, I got to tell you, I think that might be the first time that you have said it correctly to me. So
wrong preposition to me?
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Battle for the Mitten, Michigan State and Michigan, two awesome schools, two schools that have a really deep rivalry going back, in all sports, especially football. Speaking of playing rugby in the fall, Michigan State and Michigan football are also going on, and we have always been trying to pair that rugby game to the football game, and this year is no different. Calling it the Battle for the Mitten because that's what it's turned into. The setting has always been great. Weather, as you know, Matt, as you've been there in years prior, is not always the best. This year was similar, but it's always an amazing game. It's a game where a lot of people come out from, all over. And it's a setting that's really great for students from both of the programs. They love playing in it. And, it's one of their biggest takeaways when they leave our program is how fun the Battle for the Mitten was.
It is a fun thing. And now that we have that battle for the mitten stuff sewn up, what yarn can you spin for us on the action on the pitch? Wait a minute. We're going to have to take a break while everybody contemplates those awful pun attempts by yours truly. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
Been blind since I was 4, and I've never seen a beer commercial or a beer label. None of that stuff influences me. I drink beer because of the taste, and my beer is Pabst Blue Ribbon. It has the taste and the flavor.
What do you think's on the label?
I think there's a naked woman riding on a unicorn, jumping over fire. Oh, that's good beer.
And we are back. Josh Ressio, we left the folks with a cliffhanger. Can you please pull us all in off the ledge and give us some intel and some input on what's going on in D1A?
Of course. Going back to the battle for the mitten, it was a great wet setting over in Ann Arbor before the Michigan State football game. Michigan State was able to pull off a pretty good win, 25-5, in a game that did not seem to match its final score. Kevin Roach, a Buffalo, New York guy, Matt, from Canisius High School, was the star of the game. He was playing 9 all day, had to get Michigan State out of some rough spots, but he kept a level head and was able to really open up the pack and get some good tries going. Michigan played some stellar defense. I was amazed by their ability to kind of hold Michigan State back and keep them in their own side of the pitch. But in the end, Michigan State came through and got a really big win to seal themselves for the third place match in the Big Ten Championship.
All right. So what else you got for us, Josh, in the Big Ten D1A realm?
Yeah, so Ohio State and Indiana all year have, really proven to be tough teams to beat. Ohio State just finished off a 60-24 win over Illinois, who has been kind of battling Michigan State for that third place in the Big Ten. Indiana has been continuing their role, going to Purdue and beating them 43-5. Indiana and Ohio State are pretty much locked in for the Big Ten championship game, November 13th in Chicago. We talk about Michigan and Michigan State, with Michigan State being Michigan's little brother, but over the past few years, it's felt like Ohio State's been Indiana's little brother and has not been able to edge them out in these championship games. They met earlier in the regular season, in which Indiana was able to come, squeak by with a very, very narrow victory. Ohio State's looked really strong since, beating Penn State, and they kind of set themselves up for a rematch versus Indiana in a game that I think Ohio State's going to be pretty dangerous. So I look for Ohio State to come out and probably come back out on top, hopefully.
Really?
November 13th in Chicago. I don't think I'm allowed to say that, being a Michigan State guy, but Ohio State looks strong all year, and they look like they're ready to get that win over Indiana.
Wow. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, West Coast Rugby, as we had our discussion about fall and spring for rugby, West Coast Rugby is starting to pick up. Non-conference game, but St. Mary's was able to pick up their first game against the USA Academy, all the guys that weren't able to get selected to go down to South America. And, they put on a great showing, 54-10 over the USA Academy. And, I think it really goes to show that, even though these West Coast teams aren't playing in the fall, there's a reason they sit at the top of those rankings right now. And, St. Mary's is going to have a really tough year this year. They're going to have to play Life. They're going to have to play Cal in the regular season. They're going to play BYU twice, who has only allowed 1 try this entire year. So, I think more than ever, St. Mary's has an opportunity in the regular season to prove that this is the top team in the nation, and it's going to really set them up for the playoffs come the spring. 2
quick points. Tim O'Brien doing a great job at St. Mary's. Don't underestimate that program ever. And secondly, if BYU has a party, is it a BYO party? Just throwing that out there. I'm not sure if, no. Okay. Let's move on. Ding, ding, ding. It's the bad humor man that says we're going to move on and we're going to go to Colby. Colby, we got NCR playoffs coming up. It's going to be in Weymouth, Massachusetts, and it's going to be on the YouTube channel for the folks that can't get there. We will be there. And we'll be working with the excellent production team of Ryan Ginty and Next Level Rugby to help be part of that broadcast team. Also with Dallen Stanford calling matches. So good stuff to look forward to. But what can we look forward to?
Yeah, I think we can expect a lot of points on Saturday. Iona and Northeastern are two teams that have put up a boatload of points all season long. Iona put up slightly more than Northeastern, but Northeastern are certainly adept at breaking down that tough Iona defense. However, I think the Gales are going to persevere in this game. I think that their coaching staff and experience of playing top teams are going to be more than enough to get them through, and I expect them to be champions at the end of the day.
Fair enough. No controversy there from Man-U Marshall, Zach, but you agree? You concur?
Yeah, I'm with Colby on this one, Matt. Iona has looked really strong the entire season. They're fast on defense. They have a lot of powerful runners and ball carriers. You mentioned Cam DeGiorgio at 8. I will say the same just because it's a family duty, but Jerry Lanning, who's played in the center spot pretty much all season as a freshman. I told him everything he knows. He's my cousin. He's played really well. But, even outside of him, they have a lot of really talented athletes on that squad. And as Colby mentioned, they're well coached. So I see them pulling this one out as well.
Josh, are these guys too partial?
I think they might be. I went over and I watched the Northeastern practice last year, and I got to tell you, they look like a really solid group, and I think that they're going to pull out the win. So I'm going to go with Northeastern.
I'm going to differ with you on this one because Paul Burke is a head coach at Iona, and he is my former New York Rugby Club teammate. And Paul Burke was an unbelievable rugby player, great eight man. If he's going to get anything out of a team, it's going to be out of that pack. And I think when you got a lock scoring 5 tries, that pack is humming on all cylinders. I'm looking for a pack-dominated Iona Gales victory. Zach, once again, we've saved the best for last. Let's talk about the NCAA sanctioned women's scene.
Yeah, before we get into the specifics on the college level, Matt, just wanted to shout out a couple of college talents who made their debuts at the international test level for the USA Women's Eagles. I mentioned earlier they played Canada in their first test in the last couple of years. They lost that game, unfortunately, 15-9. But Sahir Hamdan, a senior at Life University, received her first cap at hooker in that match. And 2016-2017 M.A. Sorensen award winner Ilona Marr, who played her college ball at Quinnipiac, received her first cap in the 15s match as well. Marr getting the call up to replace her Olympic sevens teammate Christy Kirsch, who was unfortunately forced to withdraw due to injury. But those were just, some current and former college talents. Matt, that roster packed with college talent from all different years in the recent history. A lot of really, really great college players there who've gone on to play at the pro level here in the WPL and then also in Europe.
All right. You know what? There had to be some trash talking going on between scrum halves in the Eagles camp as well, right?
Yeah, that's a really interesting story, Matt. We mentioned on last week's episode that Penn State was taking on Davenport last weekend. Penn State hugely represented on that women's Eagles squad, 8 Penn Staters, including scrum half Carly Waters. And then her backup scrum half, Olivia Ortiz, actually played at Davenport, had a really great career at Davenport, and continues to coach at Davenport as well. So Penn State taking on Davenport last weekend. Davenport undefeated in Big Ten play. Penn State, perennial powerhouse. Penn State was able to win that game 34-12. Matt, Carly Waters had told me that that's how they were going to determine selection for that first Canada test. I don't think exactly that's how they went about it, but Penn State was triumphant in that. But can't take away from what was a really dominant season in the Big Ten by Davenport, newer to the scene than some of these other teams, and a bright future ahead for that program.
Oh, one quick note that Dartmouth and Harvard also won their matches, right? And they also won them in a big way.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. So both teams, after their long anticipated matchup last weekend, went to Dartmouth. Dartmouth secured their undefeated season and top spot in the NYRA standings by defeating Brown. Harvard beat Army to secure that second place spot, but Dartmouth ultimately wins the Ivy League championship. Both of these teams still on track to face each other in the playoffs coming up.
And rumor has it that both Dartmouth and Harvard vanquished their opponents in the third half in pop quizzes in DiffEQ, differential equations, and quantum mechanics. They're very smart, guys. They're very smart. Okay. All right. We're going to let that one settle. Great work again, guys. But before we go, we do have our picks as per Joey Rasmus and the Silverback Elite High Performance Group. They come up with these picks. You can pick them too by looking at the link. Here's what we did last week, and here's what we got ahead of us this week. On that note, I want to thank Mr. Colby Marshall in his Manchester United zip-up jacket, Mr. Zach Lanning in his Holy Cross Crusaders jacket, shirt, okay, and Josh Ressio dressing very LA/San Francisco in his black with his avant-garde background. That's okay. All right, I'm Matt McCarthy. Thank you, guys. Much appreciated. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, make sure you check out our other segments, including our Spirited segment with Eagle 168 Tony Riddell and Rugby United New York executive Rick Solizzo re the All Blacks dismantling of Team USA, our interview with Kevin Flynn, co-founder of the XV Series, and upcoming United Rugby Championship shows.